big question we were asking ourselves when we set out on this project journey. What are the key forces of change that will shape and frame the consumer landscape in Wales over the next 3 to 5 years? And we also had a look at COVID in this analysis. So we undertook this in a real state of flux, but we wanted to make sure that the forces of change we were looking at were true forces of change for the next 3 to 5 years. But we also wanted to make sure we were taking into account that there has been a big seismic shift in everyone's life in the last few years. So, last few months, of course. So the first step that we take when we approach a question like this is to look really broadly and to start thinking about what are those key social, technological, economic, environmental and political factors which shape the future world that consumers will live in. And by taking this really broad approach, it allows us to be sure that the trends we're looking at are really fundamental shifts in consumer behaviour, rather than just kind of niche trends or niche kind of momental hypes that people are following, but they won't actually sustain into the long term. So by doing this really broad analysis, we can be really sure that the trends we're looking at are long term and true. So when we looked at this broad scan, we firstly consolidated down into some key drivers of change that will shape the consumer landscape over the next 5 years. I'm not going to go into this in loads of detail today, but what we looked at was these kind of key shifts around ageing population, around economic downturn, environment under stress, political polarisation, a massive spotlight on health, changing roles for women in the workforce, widespread digital connectivity, as well as working with technology and also urbanisation. And you'll see we've got some icons on here which denote these shifts that we think have been particularly accelerated by the pandemic. But all of these obviously remain true today as much as they would have a year ago. So once we understand the landscape in which consumers are operating, we can look at how those drivers of change will shape the way they live, affect their choices, and affect their behaviours over the next 5 years. So what you can see at the top here is those drivers of change. Then we bring that all together with not just those drivers of change, but also a wide knowledge order. We spoke to some experts. We used our futures expertise in Kantar. And we clustered those into 6 big drivers, big consumer shifts and consumer trends that will define the landscape that consumers will be living in and shape their choices in food and drink, which is really the big question we were looking to answer. I mentioned experts here. We spoke to a couple of experts in this process. We spoke to a innovation and portfolio director at a big food and bev company, and also a former head of data science at a major retailer in the UK. And they really formed and fleshed out some of the examples that you'll see as we go through this presentation. So the first trend that we are looking at is fluid lives. Just to mention, actually, when we look at these trends, these are the 6 trends we're looking at. I'll talk to you through them all in detail. And we have thought starter implications of these trends, thinking about Wales in the world, but also for the Welsh in Wales. So we want to make sure that the implications and the thinking that goes behind this is relevant for people in Wales, as well as for Welsh businesses and Welsh brands, speaking to consumers more broadly. So the 6 consumer trends. The first one of these is fluid lives. So with the constant stream of information that's readily available at consumers' fingertips, they feel they are constantly playing catch up to their newfound always on routines. We're always feeling super busy, traditional working patterns are shifting, and there is this blurring between our work and personal lives, and routines are becoming a bit more complex, a bit more unstructured as people are trying to juggle their commitments. And to overcome that, they're looking for solutions that help them reduce the friction in their lives. That might be through technology, and it often is through technology, but anything that makes their life a little bit easier is really going to affect consumer behaviour in the next few years. So what we're moving from is a feeling of being constantly time pressured, having to uncomfortably juggle new connections and shifting routines, towards a future where we're looking for truly fluid living. So this is invisibly enabled by data, by on-demand services that fit around people's lives, and fulfill this expectation that the world should move with me. And we spoke to this expert about this, and I love this quote about using data to be customer-centric will be the key to success in an increasingly seamless world. It's about how we can use data to be a little bit more intelligent and get tips and suggestions for consumers to live their lives even better. So what does this mean for us? What does this trend mean? We've got a couple of examples here of brands or services that are already doing this really well. I'll talk through one of these examples quickly. This iTown app is an app developed by Welsh entrepreneurs to connect local businesses in Wales, like butchers, could be corner shops, delis, or any other local business with local people. And customers can order and arrange delivery using a simple tool, and they can pay online, and it really makes accessing local services that bit more convenient. And obviously in a COVID scenario, that's been even more welcomed by consumers. So a few thought starters here, and obviously, please do consider your own thought starters that come off the back of this trend. But are you thinking about providing convenient solutions for fast-paced lives? And are you available? Are you making your products and services available at all these touch points? And could you use partnerships to ensure you're conveniently placed in consumers' lives? Thinking about meal patterns changing, are you helping consumers prepare and store food appropriately? And are you prepared for how the changing retail landscape will evolve? So new channels and how you show up in those new channels is really important. So that is the first trend. The next trend is sustainable responsibility. So the entire impact of product life cycles will come under scrutiny. So that's not just the consumer-facing side, but from production, design, manufacturing, and consumption, use, and obviously waste disposal. Technology will certainly enable transparency of supply chains and also will help businesses and production monitor and reduce manufacturing waste. The real picture here for the future consumer is how educated consumers are going to be. They are going to be better informed, they're going to be more aware of the effects of their consumption and the effects that their behaviour has on the wider world and society around them. And they will ultimately be looking to make more conscious choices, so they don't carry around the burden of that guilt of impacting the environment and society, and they want to make choices that make them feel good about themselves. So this is moving from a world where sustainability is seen as a bit of a side issue and it's prioritised only by certain niches in society, towards a future where the full impact of consumer choices being taken into consideration across all realms of life. And it's really part of the mainstream conversation. So it's moving from this kind of side topic to a really central part of how consumers and shoppers live their lives. So our expert here spoke about how understanding microclimates is really important to understand which is best to grow which crops, to think about how a long-term safe and responsible supply chain can be developed. Thinking about who's already doing this, a great example is the Olio app. So they have completely got on board with the fact that consumers don't like the feeling of waste, don't like wasting food, and it connects neighbours up with one another who have food to share. And it might be food that's close to its sell-by date. It might be something that literally might get thrown out, before you go on holiday. And this is an app that allows consumers to share the food without throwing it away. Some implications of this one. So are you thinking about your whole supply chain? So this is not just about waste or packaging, it's about the whole process. Are there ways that innovation could help reduce the impact of byproducts or waste products? And are we thinking about how Wales holds a natural advantage to produce the products? And are we fully accountable for the product life cycle? And if so, are we communicating that? It's a great point of difference. If you can be one of the producers or brands that can really share that benefit that you hold, it's something that consumers really want to hear about. And what we've really challenged businesses to think about now is, can you be part of the solution, minimising the impact that the industry has on these environmental and social issues, and really take the front foot and be on the forefront of solving those problems. So the next trend, trust and identity. So politics is more divisive than ever. We've seen that even more accelerated in recent years. Individuals are much less trusting of kind of formalized international entities. So grassroots movements provide the channels for the expression of all types of interests and niche communities, as well as the relationships people form virtually. Consumers are seeking to shape the stories they're part of. They're looking for brands that contribute their thoughts and feelings, and they reject generalizations of needs and desires. So they want to feel like they're understood. They want to feel like brands they relate to understand them and meet their needs. And they're looking for honesty. They're looking for something that champions their roots. Maybe it's about local, maybe it's about knowing the human behind the brand. And they will be forming networks across many different aspects of identities, heritage, and communities. So we're moving from a world which is challenging traditional generic labels as people feel increasingly empowered to express their identity, towards the future where there's a real breakdown of boundaries and that becomes much more mainstream, enabling people to fill different aspects of their identity whenever and wherever they are. Transparency is key. That's the real buzzword that came through the experts on this topic. And we've got some great examples here that you can read about local produce or really transparent labelling. So when we're thinking about implications, are we thinking about the whole supply chain against the values that we're claiming to hold? Do we celebrate Wales? Do we celebrate the story and its uniqueness and the people that are behind the products? Could we be a voice or a platform to consumers to celebrate their affinity with Welsh identity? Are we really open about the supply chain? Are we really open with our consumers about transparency and authenticity? And do we take a stand on matters? Do you want to take a stand on matters, championing the truth, rejecting stereotypes that consumers may increasingly challenge? The next trend, digital expansion, something that we'll all be experiencing on this virtual call, this new infiltration of digital into all parts of life. Rural areas will be benefiting from better accessibility or connection. Traditional industries will be embedded with new technologies, from automation, it could be biotech advancements, it could be using big data to make efficiency gains or incorporating predictive algorithms. That could be supply chain, but it also could be consumer-facing services. And from our consumers' perspective, areas or locations that might have been previously less catered for will actually benefit from better connections, and that they'll be part of this ever-growing attention economy. And there'll be this fueling of expectations from consumers that they should be able to have everything right here and right now whenever they want it. And one of the big shifts we've seen in COVID is that older generations who might have been previously a bit cut off from this trend have actually become a lot more accepting and open and more familiar with the benefits. So moving from a lack of available connectivity for some parts of society towards large-scale connectivity, facilitating the integration of hard-to-reach sectors and demographics. An example here, a quote here about integrating predictive technology and artificial intelligence will create apps, programs, and guidance that can specifically tell each consumer what they need, when they need it, and how much they need. And that will be a big shift in how consumers react and respond to the products that they're presented with. So what does this mean? Are you considering the skills and other structural changes you'll need to succeed in a digital world? In what ways could you leverage new technologies to help you innovate? Have you considered software partners? Are you aware of how technology could help you become more competitive, and thinking about what peers and competitors are doing in this space? And this could be, that could be other small firms, it could be multinational companies. There's a big difference in the way that people are approaching this. And how can we maximize the usage of data and technology to provide the best services while remaining really trusted by our consumers that we're responsible with their data? And a couple of examples here around, the future of consumer living, smart fridges, AI upgrades. They make decisions for you. You don't need to write your shopping list yourself. They can help you make those decisions. And then food planners, we're probably all familiar with this sort of thing now. This example is based around recipes, so you can look for different recipes and download them to your app. So really exemplifying how consumers expect their life to be empowered by digital. Elevated experiences is all around consumers placing less value on material possessions and more on experiences. So that could be out of ordinary experiences, and they're now seen as the new form of social currency. So it's not about, you know, the car you have or the handbag you have, it's about what have you done and what are the experiences that you've had. Financial issues will mean that people will be a little bit more constrained as to how they can treat themselves. So when they want to do it, they'll do it in a really worthwhile way, and they really want it to be immersive, attention grabbing, and that could be physical or digital. Expanded use of new technology, so VR, AR, will enhance and add entertainment to moments of consumption. So moving from a world where people have been prioritizing experiences over ownership, but they're looking for brands that offer something a little bit more, to taking this even further. So it's much more intentional. It's not just about everything that's kind of new and exciting, but it's actually more purposeful. We're looking for experiences that enrich us and help us squeeze the most out of our lives. So functional experience is okay when things are a bit boring and it's not something you want to engage with, but anything that's exciting and personal is where it really matters. So we've got a couple of examples here from brands that are doing this really well. So The Good Life is a weekend-long celebration of crafts. It's one of these prime opportunities that Wales could really leverage. Outside activities, really maximising the benefit of the situation, the place, the woodlands, the food that's found there, and then it's cooked for attendees. So a really great example of how we can leverage our location. So what does this mean? Are we delivering on these high expectations? Are we ensuring that we're not left behind and that we're a memorable experience for consumers, and we're not just, you know, one of those products that gets seen as functional and don't want to be engaged with? And are we thinking about that engagement across all points of contact? So not just in the, you know, in the physical interaction with the product, but also online and offline. And are you aware of your broader competitive set when it comes to experience? So it might not just be a similar category or a similar product, but it might be how consumers are spending their time. Next up, living well. So the population is getting older. We've obviously had this huge pandemic. People are increasingly aware of non-communicable diseases such as diabetes, but also contagious diseases, which we're experiencing at the moment. And people are therefore having a think about how they can be more proactive and personalised towards their physical and mental health. And obviously pre-pandemic, this was a shift that we were already seeing, but this is certainly increased as a result of the pandemic. And a lot of this is fueled by information. So we have greater awareness of the impact that our lifestyles are having on our bodies and our minds, and a greater emphasis on prioritising health. And fitness is becoming a bit of a status symbol, particularly for younger generations. And there's really kind of social aspect of sharing your achievements and how you spend your time. So moving from this kind of levels of information creating a bit of a knee-jerk reaction from consumers to this overwhelming desire to live better, not just longer. So consumers are adopting more sophisticated and tailored approaches to understanding their individual well-being needs. So this is really all about personal nutritional needs. So we've moved from the world of just counting calories, but it's actually about what are those calories doing for you? You know, what's the quality of them, and what benefits are they giving you? So we've got some great examples here, both of very personalized nutrition approaches, so personal shoppers, dietitians in the store that help you make choices, and then we've got some at-home microbiome testing as well as an example here. So are we thinking about what healthy really means for our consumers and the way they interact with health and well-being? So it's not just less of something, but it's much more interconnected than that. Are we taking responsibility to offer healthy alternatives, and does the pack and the product help us make the right choices but still feel satisfied? And are we part of the consumer conversation around health? Are the products meeting expectations around personalisation and tailored solutions? So that was a bit of a whistle-stop tour. That's our 6 trends: fluid lives, sustainable responsibility, digital expansion, elevated experiences, trust and identity, and living well. That's all I was going to share with you today. A lot to take in, hopefully some good rich insights for you to take forward.